So, bringing in a sketch. I just did a quick web search this morning and found this cool website with some of Alvaro Siza's cool sketches, and I really like that one right there because I'm thinking about not buildings, but I'm thinking about building a diagram in 3D. Okay, and that little drawing right there was one of those really cool things. Like, oh man, I could say I think it's probably supposed to be a section drawing, but my brain jumped to that as a plan, as walls and little building and little rooms like floating between the walls. Now the problem with the internet sometimes is when I go save as, it doesn't want to save an image. So another really quick secret handshake that maybe I shouldn't be uploading to YouTube is the print screen function, which all of you should know. But if you don't, I'm simply going to go, for me, it's function print screen. And then when I go into Photoshop or whatever image editing program of choice, I can simply go New File. I'm going to open up my clipboard. And then I'm going to go Control V or Edit Paste. And now whatever was on my screen is now in my image editing software. Okay, so I'm going to use my crop tool and drop everything down just to that sketch. Click. Double click the pan button to get it full scale. Super low res, but I don't care. It's only for reference. Right, so then I'm going to go File, Save a Copy, and I'm going to save this as a JPEG file. We're going to use primarily JPEGs in this class because they won't eat up space on your computer. It's not the best file format type, but for this class, an intro class, I'm more concerned about saving your hard drives through the semester than I am ultra high res images. Okay, so we're going to do that. Diagram sketch, JPEG. JPEGs are your friends. And again, I'm keeping the quality low, the compression. So better image, larger file size, worse image, smaller file size. This is one of those that I can land right in the middle on. Okay, so, okay, done. Inside of FormIt, I'm going to import that image, okay? And FormIt has a really simple system for doing that. It's simply File, Import, Locally. And there's my image. And I'm going to say, when you do file import, often it's going to be set to AXM. This list right here. That's because it's assuming, oh, you want to import an object. But I don't want to import an object. I want to import a JPEG file. And I want to import that JPEG file. It knows, oh, you're going to do that? Okay, you clearly want this to be a backdrop, a background image, right? So it automatically builds a plane, puts the image on it, and puts that in space. Now, the problem with that is we are working on architecture. Right? Our architecture has a specific scale. We are only doing diagrams on this, a three-dimensional diagram in FormIt, but I'm requiring you to think about the scale of said diagrams. Super important. We want to be working at scale. So if I were to measure this right now, I've got a little measuring tool right here. Left click, measure. That is, I mean, that's a reasonable scale. That's like 27 feet. Along the y-axis, 26 feet this direction. But I really kind of like the idea of these sort of four walls and these as spaces floating between the four walls. And so if I measure across there to there, it's only, oh, well, let's just re-measure again here. Measure between there and there is only 7 feet. And that's not quite room size. I want that to be more like 12 feet or so. Right? So I'm going to increase the size of this thing. But I want to do it to a more exact dimension, which is what we often are trying to do. Right? So let's say that 28 feet, I want to be double in size. 28 times 2 is, thank you, 56. So I'm going to take this line out. And I'm taking it out along the x-axis. Super, super important with FormIt, y'all. Especially for this project. Work along your axes. Revit is going to be a little bit easier to work off axis. It doesn't care as much. FormIt on this first project, you can work off axis, but not for this project. If you'll hold yourself on the XYZ axes, you'll have an easier time on this project. Okay, so especially if you're learning FormIt, first FormIt project, hold yourself to the orthogonal axes, okay? So I'm going to go 56 feet from that location along the x-axis, and I can tell that because I've got that red line. You guys can see that okay? As soon as I'm off axis, no. On axis, yes. No, yes, no. Cool. 56 feet, left click. Except I want to do that as a line. Take 2. 56 feet, left click. Okay, see that line right there? I know that line is exactly 56 feet. I want this line on that image to also be 56 feet. So to scale that, I'm going to select my image, which is a double click. Click, click. I'm going to right click my image. And this is the really cool thing. I really like this setup in FormIt. It's really, really clever. When I right click, it gives me quick options. So I can really, like, once you get used to using this, you can work really fast by selecting something, right click, find the option, select the option, go back into your workspace without having to go back up to these panels, things like that, okay? So scale, I want to scale this, right? So I'm going to select scale, and it gives me this little in-space widgety thing. So I'm going to simply drag, this is my base point. I want the base point to be here. So that was a left click drag. This is my other guide, and I'm going to start that at the approximate end of that line. Cool. So that is what I have. And then I'm going to drag this arrow out until it finds the end of that line. And so it's snapped. You can actually kind of see it even. Snap. It's going to snap to the end point of that line. Now, that line right there and that wall are both right at 56 feet. Cool. It's not super precise, but guess what? That's a sketch. It's not super precise either. But I now have those two things kind of working together. Cool? Okay. So I'm going to delete that line, my guide, and I'm going to build a few walls. So to do that, my pencil tool, there are a bunch of different ways to build walls and things. Okay? Eventually, you're going to start to learn your own. I'm going to go the longhand method by drawing individual lines, so you can kind of see how the program's coming together. So pencil, line tool, I'm going to start right here. I know that that was supposed to be 56 feet, so I'm going to go ahead and go 50. Actually, I don't know. I'm already changing the design. I want to go further because it seems fun. 72 feet. I'm going to make that wall 2 feet thick. And then I'm going to come all the way back down. So again, I'm on the red axis again. And I'm looking for the end of that line. The end of that line is right there. And as I drag that line, I want you to kind of watch what happens. Again, it's going to find the inference for the other line. Because it knows, Betty's making a rectangle. Not positive, but Betty's making a rectangle. So it's going to find that inference for you. So I can left click there. I can click back to my beginning point, and I've made a solid polygon. A solid two-dimensional polygon. Now, let's talk about polygons really quick. If I come to the side over here, so I'm going to use another method, a 3-point rectangle. 1, 2 clicks. Okay? That is a solid infilled polygon. Okay? What I mean by that, I can select all of that with a double click, and then it immediately wants to let me move it. I can also select just the polygon and hit delete, and I will be left with those 4 lines, right? So that is hollow. It's not actually geometry. It's just, well, it is geometry, but it's only a set of lines. There's no solid there. So that's one of the things you want to be able to watch out for. So I'm just going to double click that, select the chain, and delete it. When I have a polygon in FormIt, I can select that face, left click, and it's immediately going to assume Next thing designer wants to do is make that a three-dimensional piece of geometry. So you can see I've got that little up-down arrow. In SketchUp, we would call it push-pull. I'm not sure what FormIt calls it, but it's kind of the same thing. It's push-pull. So I'm going to start right here on that corner, and I'm going to start going up. And I'm going to set that at 18 feet because it sounds fun. Cool? You guys with me? I've just made my first solid object. Now, as you are working, our goal here is to make a 3D print. And so if we know that right from the very beginning, one of the things that I want you to turn on are going to be visual styles. And I can find that menu, window, right down here, visual styles. I want to turn that on. So visual styles are, well, it's a whole series of things. Close all that stuff. So visual styles will give me things like, do I want to see shadows? Which, for the most part, when you're working, you don't. That's going to slow your computer down. But when I'm creating final imagery or like stuff I want to print, a lot of times I want to turn shadows on. If I'm doing a shadow study, something like that. I can have, if I'm cutting sections, do I want, where I cut a section, do I want to solid crochet it? All that kind of stuff. I can turn on edges, like sketchy edges. Right, so I do that, and now the edges look drawn. Thick edges, right? So I have a little bit of sense of line weight about them. Hidden edges, so I get an X-ray kind of view, but I don't want that on. Extend edges, so it looks more like, you know, cool architecturally drawing, but in 3D stuff, right? So I'm going to turn most of those off, right? I can even turn edges off, so I'm just seeing the geometry. So, but I kind of like it. Again, I'm old school. I like edges. That's my axis, so I can see it. But the one that I want is the monkey wrench. And I'm going to turn on watertight issues. So when we're 3D printing, the 3D printer needs to identify this is inside, this is outside. Because what the 3D printer is going to do is it's going to slice through our objects, figuring out what's in, what's out, and turn them into something solid. Okay? Much more on that later. When I turn on watertight issues, I know, okay, this is good. I don't have any red lines. But if I were to select and delete one face, big, glaring, red warning sign. Because this is no longer a six-sided object that has an inside and out. It is now 5 planes that are forming a box-like something. So for this project, you want to work with that on. So that if you see red lines popping up, you can go, oh crap, undo, 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 until you get back to no red lines on your screen. Okay, when you send something to the 3D printer and it's not printing right, this is going to be the first thing that I check. And when you go, oh, I forgot to do that thing that you showed us with the thing for the watertight issues, I'm going to say, aha. And often what that means, we'll try and fix it. I've got some good tricks. But often what it means is you go back in and remodel things. Sorry. It happens. Okay? So, Control-Z to undo. Control-Z to undo again. So I'm back to that. Okay? So, I'm going to make these next set of walls really quick. And I'm not going to go quite as far as I thought I was today, which is all good, because I want you guys to have some time to work. So I'm going to send this one out 60 feet over 2 feet. Oh, and this is a good one to note too. What axis am I drawing on right now? Or what plane am I drawing on? Because this is one of the tricky things you're going to want to run into in working in 3D. What color is my line? Nope. The one I'm drawing right now. It's blue. So right now, I am actually drawing in the XZ plane rather than the XY plane. So let me show you that. If I left click here and then left click over here, and then left click over here. Well, that didn't do anything close to what I thought it was going to do. That's kind of fun. Let's try that again. Right? I can be drawing all sorts of weird ways, which is why you really need to pay attention to working on your orthogonals, okay? So what I'm going to do this time, I'm going to make sure I'm on that red axis, the x-axis. Okay, I'm going to come over 2 feet again. I'm going to come all the way back to this wall along my green axis, which is the y. And also, as I'm working that direction, if I hold down shift, it's going to bold that line. Okay, when I do that, no matter where I move my mouse, it is going to lock me to the y-axis. Super, super important feature. Okay, so I'm going to close that off. And then I'm going to extend this wall up. And I should see those red lines go away once I extend that one up. 14 feet, sure. Let's do that again on this edge. Bring this one out, maybe not quite as far. Being really careful to be on my y-axis. 2 feet over red axis. Back to the wall, y-axis. Push pulling this up. Okay, so as I was mentioning, inferences are super important in this program. What if I want to make this wall the same height as this wall? Right? I can remember what height I typed in, and I can go tab, and that brings up a number sheet. I think it was 18 feet. So I'm going to type in 18 feet, and then go, crap, it wasn't 18 feet. Undo. I have no idea, because I'm totally a right-brain person. Numbers are like abstract things. No idea what that was. So I could go back and measure, which would take time, especially when I'm like working fast. Or I can use an inference. I'm going to use FormIt. Again, I'm going to push pull and get this started. It is pulling along the z-axis. I really don't have a choice. It's going z-axis, end of story. I can take my cursor and hover over the height of that wall. And it's going to snap the height of one wall to the height of that one. Cool? So all I've got to do, even though it's going up, at top edge, anywhere along the top edge of that wall, left click, and those two match perfectly. You're going to do those things all the time as you're working in FormIt, and all the time as you're working in Revit. Revit is sort of a different system, but it's still that idea of playing with geometry. Okay, so I'm going to do just a little bit more modeling here, and then I'm going to hang it up, and we're going to go into this sort of as a workday mode. Let's do shorter, seems fun, and wider. And that. Push pull. I want this one to go taller. And then I'm going to come around and take this, push pull it this direction. And take that and push pull it back down. Cool. So I'm starting to build this structure that's going to have these sort of floaty rooms between the walls. So the last thing, if I want to punch a hole through something, there's a couple of different methods to do it. The method that I want you to start with, this is one of the reasons why I want you to start working on the orthogonals. If I have a solid plane to work with, something simple to work with, I can draw, whereas if I'm over here, it's going to default to the XY plane, the ground plane. If I hover over this surface, it is going to default to the surface of that face. So I can come in and let's say I want to go 2 feet down from the top, 4 feet over, 8 feet tall, and then I want to close that box off. Got that red line, I can delete it. I only drew that in as a guide because I didn't want it to be arbitrary from the top down because dimensions matter. Okay, so now this object is divided up into 2 surfaces. I can now take that surface, push pull, and go right to the other edge. And it's cut a hole. Cool, so I can come in, and this one, I'm just going to do a few more of those. more dimensionally arbitrary. Should I do that one right? Yep. Right enough anyway. Okay, so I have a little series of them. I'm going to select 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Push, pull them all through. Lots of holes in the walls. Cool? That's where I'm going to close it off for today. I wanted to go a little bit further, get into a few additional things. But that's, oh, let's do one more thing. One more quick thing. Let's say that I wanted this opening to match to this wall. Okay, I can use that same trick again with inferences. I'm going to go line tool. I'm going to select this bottom edge. Again, I'm drawing along the red axis. Okay, I'm going to hold down Shift, and then it's going to snap me to that wall. I can go up blue axis, hold down Shift, snap to that height. Across green axis, Shift, snap to that edge. Then when I come down, things get much easier, right? So I'm going down on my Z axis, I'm holding Shift, inferencing to that point, and then I can close off that rectangle. I can delete my initial guideline, and now I can push that one into the wall. I don't want that one to go all the way through, because I'm going to slide something that fits right through there. Cool? So we've got 10 minutes left in class. I want you to kind of team, website, email today. Dive into making a couple of things with FormIt, with your line tools. Ask questions. Wednesday, we'll launch into wrapping this up, getting it something to the 3D printer. And then Friday, we will conclude questions and workday.